My name is Bernice Kaplan. My married name is Bernice Kaplan. I was married to Laser Kaplan, and um, we had a marriage that lasted about 60 some years before Laser died. And we lived in a number of different houses, some of which we built, and we had a really special kind of a marriage, very special. Uh,
Bernice, what was your maiden name?
my maiden name was Reisman, Riseman, and my parents came over here at a very young age, and first my grandfather Reisman came to get started with some sort of a living for them, and he brought over the children. There were six children in Dad's family here that were brought here, and six were left behind in Europe.
Did they ever come over, the sixth?
No, I guess they didn't want to because we never discussed it, and I never wanted to bring up things if they didn't choose to talk about it. And I'm really sorry now because maybe it would have been good for them.
Do you remember the names of those six children?
Uh, I don't think I ever even heard them. Now, my husband's side also had family that came, but they were very talkative, and they had, particularly two of the girls were very vocal, and I did have, and I don't know now, we moved here a few months ago, and I did have some correspondence from it, which I saved even in the move, but a few things got lost. But I do have some of it, and one of them was a letter that was written to us. But we did keep in touch somewhat, and the cousin who wrote this correspondence, and there wasn't a lot of it, was very vocal and just a wonderful gal. So we kept in some touch, and she lived. We went to California for her 100th birthday party, and it was a big party, and we had a wonderful time. But and she went to Israel. Oh no, this is one of the other girls went to Israel, and she was also very vocal. And she gave a she went with a check in hand, in memory of her husband, who in the meantime had died. And she got up there in Israel with a room full of people that she didn't know, and she told them what they should do to get a country, and she didn't mince any words about it. And she was most impressive, and that was on her 100th birthday. So,
What was your date of birth?
October 16th, 1912.
Can you tell me a little bit about your father and mother?
Well, my mother was a wonderful cook. That I'd never forget because she just did it naturally, She was not vocal otherwise, really, and she was tiny like I am, and my father was a schmoozer. He made up for what she didn't, and we ended up in a small town, about, I suppose about 80 miles from here or something like that. I don't know. I was just a kid then. And my father bought out, you might know some of these people. My father bought out a general store in this little town called Elk Creek. That was the name of the town. And trying to get some sequence here, and I don't know if I can. Anyway, my father then made this into a general merchandise store. That was it. We carried some of everything. And we kids worked in the store. When after school, if I stopped to play ball or something, I heard about it. And we all, there were 4 girls. I was the youngest of the 4. And
What were the names of your sisters?
my sisters, well, one was Sarah Krasny when she got married to Millard Krasny, whose family lived in Council Bluffs when they met. And Sarah, and then the first one was Lillian, and she was bossy, but she was talented too. And that was Lillian, Sarah, Ruth, and they called me Babe, which I guess was appropriate. I don't know. I never really cared if I wasn't called Babe. I never said much about it.
Did you have any brothers? No brothers.
No. And I think that was a big disappointment to my father. All girls.
What are your memories of growing up in that little town?
Well, I think I was about 12 by the time we moved there, when we moved from Omaha. And we had here, someplace there is a little picture of some of the family who worked for my father at the store, and they're standing outside in those white aprons, you know. And, there were memories, but they were not long ones. And they were just didn't talk about it. It's funny because my father was really a schmoozer, and he talked to everybody. And so he had friends. The other problem, I would think, when I think back now, is that he made friends easily. When we lived in this little town, 200 people, but the surrounding area was our whole, my father got to be the biggest, he bought poultry and eggs from the farmers around, and he made a lot of friends around these farmers, but it was also very German. And sometimes it came out, I remember waiting patiently for my turn to get out of that town. And one by one we did. My 2 oldest sisters married. The third one was later. And I was then left in this little town. And anyway, we moved back to Omaha and bought a store here. And that was much better.
Did you have any memories of your schooling while you were out in this
there,
little town?
Only that the school was at the top of a great big hill, and we didn't have carpools or anything like that. And then nobody drove us. It was only a couple of blocks, but we had to walk straight up the hill. And I think that probably the education was probably bad, but I wouldn't know because I was maybe I think I was about 10 when we moved out there, somewhere there.
And how long did you live there going to school?
Not too long, maybe a year. I'm not sure about any of that because I was so young, and it was a different kind of a life, you know, all of which, especially being Jewish, we couldn't wait to get out of there.
Was your family very religious?
No, not at all. We weren't. We were in the first place. We weren't really in a position to attend services once during the high holidays, things like that. They managed to get in and bring the kids and go to services, but they were not religious at all. And I sort of developed my own kind of religion, and that's what was available.
Tell me a little bit about your father.
Oh, my father was a big schmoozer, like I told you, and very personable and good looking. And I do have pictures around of them. I know I can find a few of them anyway. Some of them got lost in the last move, but I think that if you want them, I can find some when there's time.
Do you remember a lot of the special times you had with your father?
Not really, because he was more I don't know how to describe it exactly. He wasn't big for children, you know. He was schmoosy and friendly with all of the grown-ups, but the kids, we had one particular cousin whose daughter I was very close with, and when we came to Omaha, I dropped off at that daughter, and the rest of them went to see the rest of the relatives. But I was just old enough to assert myself, and so I just went where I knew I was loved.
And how about your mother? Tell me a little about your mother.
My mother was tiny and a wonderful cook, and she was, I don't know how to describe it, quiet, you know, just she was just special, but she didn't belong out in that little town either. She was really happy to get out. So.
Then you mentioned that when you moved back to Omaha, your father was in business again.
I do have a picture someplace of that. It was really a grocery store this time. It was not a general store. You know, that was in the country where they needed everything. But this was just groceries, and there were a couple pictures around, but I don't know whether he's on them or not. May have been.
Where was that store located here in Omaha?
North 24th Street. That's where the Jewish section was, and it was I'm a little mixed up about it because Laser also had an uncle who had a store on North 24th Street, and his was later, and he was younger, but I'm not sure that I've got them all straightened out. But I remember that store and the people, some of the people in it, and so on.
What kind of memories do you have of North 24th Street?
Well, in those days it was fun. You know, our friends were there, and our family was. Some of them were there. Most of them later, little by little, kind of filtered out. But North 24th Street in those days was all right. I think I was pretty young when we moved from there too, though. And all of the girls were at home then. We had this cousin that I tell you that I was close with. Her mother and father. Well, no, they were married later, I guess. But there too, she came from a family. This was my mother's side of the family, and it was a half a cousin to me. It wasn't a full relationship, but it was closer than it couldn't have been any closer. We were just. It was great for me because when we came in, I went where I knew I wanted to be, and I was independent about it, really.
What was this cousin's name?
Their last name was her married name was Court, Frances Court, and she. I'm trying to think. She was about 2 years younger than I was, but it didn't make any difference. We were very close, and just the fact that it was like coming home to be with them. Oh, I do have one picture I remember, one that it was a Passover Seder, it looks like, in the picture. And it was at the courts, and we're all in it. But I was a babe in arms then. I don't really remember it, except that I have the picture. But it was wonderful to. This was the talkative side of the family, so I guess if you wanted to know anything, you could. These were all girls but one. Let's see, I have to count up how many girls there were, but there was only one young man in that family.
Was this on your mother's side?
Yeah.
How many brothers? You said one brother. How many sisters did she have?
Well, they were half sisters, and they were. I think there were only two of them. I don't remember ever hearing anything more about any others. One young man, I remember him, and the rest were girls. Oh, and that was the other thing. When my to-be someday father-in-law came to this country, he roomed and boarded with the court family. I call them the court family. That was the married name of one of the men. But I'm trying to think. I don't know. I'd have to organize it in my mind. But here, yes, this is what I was going to say. My husband, Laser Kaplan, when his father came to this country, and this was before they were married and everything, he boarded and roomed at wait a minute. Well, he moved in to this big house. Somebody got him a place to live, and that's where he started to meet all these girls, and some of them were quite beautiful. And it's hard to organize the sequence without a little more notice. So if I see you again, I can get it better. But
Were you very close with your aunts and uncles, your mother and father's
on my
sisters and
mother's
brothers?
side, yeah.
Did most of them live in this area?
They lived in, the one that I used to be with the most was, they lived on 36th and Davenport. Do you know that neighborhood? Yeah, by that time, I think there were probably quite a few Jewish people around there moving west. And this was just, they were just a wonderful family as far as I was concerned, And I don't know where else to go.
Well, beside this school that you started when you were in the country, what school did you go to here in Omaha?
I went to Killam, which was also the Jewish type school, and but I think only for a year or two there. Yeah, because I was in first grade at. I don't know the exact sequence of it, but anyway, I was also out of Killam School, but only about a year that I remember of the next step. And I didn't meet Laser until we were in college age at that time, and I moved to Lincoln, and I think it was pretty tough times then. So I was able to get a job because my sister next to me, my sister Ruth, was dating the owner of Ben Simon and Sons in Lincoln, which do you know Lincoln at all? Well, Simon's, so I was able to get a job in the office because she was dating Harry Simon, who happened by that time to be heading for the presidency of the store. So.
Did they eventually marry?
No. And I was glad because he was an awfully nice fellow, but dull, really dull. And she married. Well, he was also down at Lincoln going to school. A wonderful young guy, from Sioux City, Iowa, and they lived in Sioux City in the first part of their marriage. And excuse me, he died quite young, and they had two young children, and ultimately moved to Omaha, which was great because at least we were there for them, you know. So.
Well, after Kellam and that elementary school, did you go to high school here in Omaha?
I don't have any memory of that. I don't think so. No, I'm not sure about that. I'd have to give it a little thought.
And after high school, you didn't go on to school, did you?
I went to Nebraska. That's where, well, my sister, the sister next to me, and I then had an apartment in Lincoln, and I did go. Excuse me. About a year, I think, was all, and then I got this job at Simon's, and then I wait a minute. I came to Omaha when my parents moved to Omaha, and that's when I got the job at Ben Simon and Sons. And I was lucky in that respect, you know. And I always held the jobs. I never got fired that I remember. So, and then I remember I met Laser at a party down at Lincoln. But
Was he going to school there at that time?
Well, no, he went to. Let me see. He went to Iowa to college, and he got a degree after Iowa from Creighton here in Omaha. Not a medical degree. He became a lawyer at Creighton and practiced for a while. And he said, this is too slow for me. I couldn't understand it. He just couldn't. He couldn't be a lawyer. He didn't like it. So ultimately, that could fit into the picture. He ended up opening a store, as the rest of the family had, and then kept on opening and opening. And by the time he got through adding on, I think there were 17 or 18 stores.
Were these grocery stores?
No, these were ladies' ready-to-wear stores. And he took trips into New York when he had to. He didn't like going to New York. I went occasionally, but not I didn't immerse myself in it. For about a year, maybe, I did do the hosiery buying. That was just one department. These were not big stores, but they were big enough that we had some of everything.
Where were these stores located?
Started out first. Well, we were in Omaha, Lincoln, Grand Island. Smaller towns around, but also some of the big towns, and it became it was a chain of about 17 stores, something like that. And my husband was a hard worker, and he wasn't much of a player, but he did like it, and still when my mother and father then lived in this little town, and there again we didn't like it. We wanted to be where the family was, and there was nobody there. And then it was pretty prejudiced too. So we got out of there when we could, and thank goodness at that time my oldest sister by then was married and to a little bit of money, and she took them out of business and sent them to Florida for the summer, things like that. And so, in those respects, we were lucky.
What was the name of these stores that your husband had?
Well, I don't know if I can remember. After all, I'm 95 years old, and if I remember anything, it's a miracle. So, let's see. I don't know. Something maybe, one of them maybe was when we were still in Omaha, was a grocery store, and that was maybe Reisman's, I'm not sure. But I also maybe have a picture of that too. So.
Now, when did you get married?
Well, we were married today, that would be late in life, I guess, about, God, I don't remember. I'm not sure. But Laser had graduated from law school. He was out of that. And I worked whenever. And I did work, oh yeah, I did work the first year or two that we were married. I remember that. And then when Tony is our daughter, Tony, and when she came along, I retired. And I don't think that my life was particularly interesting, but it was a lot of getting out of.
Tell me about your daughter and your son.
Well, my daughter is wonderful. I couldn't have gone through the whole scenario of the illness and all that without her, and even today. And Bob is, he's kind of a special kind of a kid too. He's 40-some years old, but he will probably never marry, and just as well, because right now I'm quite dependent on him. And my daughter too. I try not to, just it's just hard, but they're both just wonderful people.
Do you have some fond memories of raising your children?
Well, it was a lot of no, the memories, most of them are not that fun because we were always escaping from something. So, but we all managed to turn out really pretty good, though. The four sisters, we were tied down to some extent because we had to work, and but it didn't hurt us.
Now, when did this little chain of stores, when did you close those up or sell them?
Well, we sold them to someone who worked for us at one time, and he thought he knew everything, and he really didn't know very much. And eventually, they were all sold one by one. It was when people were going out of business every minute at that time, and we were lucky enough to just get out in the right time. I remember my father saying that the previous owners ran a sale before they turned it over. They had ladies' high-heeled shoes thrown out on a table for 50 cents a pair. They were very high style too, and you didn't wear that kind of stuff in that little town, so they were giving them away for 50 cents. But I don't know.
What are your memories after you were back in Omaha of your religious life? Did you go to the synagogue at that time?
Well, we happened to be become very close with the rabbi, so the Reform rabbi, and I know it very well. We were good friends. Wait a minute.
Rabbi Brooks?
Oh, well, that was later, much later. Rabbi Weiss, David Weiss, and he became very well known around. We were in touch with him even after. As a matter of fact, the first year he was here without his wife because she was teaching, and the job that he had was not that great. So she stayed on for the first 2 semesters, and then by that time he was climbing the ladder, and he was really very well known and liked. He was really just a great guy. So we were able to fit in to that niche, which was good for us because we never had the exposure, So, I don't know. What else?
Are you in close touch with any of your relatives, nieces and nephews?
We are close with some of them. Yeah, there aren't too many of them in Omaha anymore, but they're very special, at least to us, And I think without them, I could never have made this move. I mean, this is a big apartment, and it was just, my daughter just directed it, and she said, the thing for us to do is to have them not only come in and pack for us, but come over and unpack. Well, that's what we did, and it did work. I lost a few things, and I know they didn't steal them. There wasn't anything that these fellows would have wanted to steal. But what happened, we figured out, is that we had them wrap, and they wrapped, and then we had them come and unwrap, and that's where we got lost there. I've got a lid to the things that I don't have the thing, and I have certain things, but nothing major that mattered, really. And by that time, my husband had retired before we moved in here, and he was on this computer thing. He was having servicemen out, and spending days at that machine, So that kept him busy and happy. So.
What can you tell me about your grandchildren?
Oh, my grandchildren. They're wonderful children. You see, maybe it's not fair, but they are exceptional because they have a wonderful mother and a wonderful father who work together. And these kids are, the oldest one is named Chad. That's what we call him. And he's big and tall, and just his family is big and tall, but not his father. He's shorter, and he's just a wonderful guy. And the other parent is Jill. That's our granddaughter. No, granddaughter? Or great-granddaughter. She's our great-granddaughter. And she is exceptional too, really. She's just a wonderful girl. And the kids reflect it. There are 2 boys and a girl. The girl is the youngest, and she's 12 now. She's taller than I am. Every time we see her, we measure again, and they've all passed me up. But it's wonderful to see them grow up, and we are so lucky that they're here and the parents are here. And there's one parent left, Gus. That's our that's our grandson-in-law. Anyway, they're wonderful parents, and the kids show it. They're just good kids. The middle one just got his driver's license last week. He nearly went crazy till he got it because the place was closed where you get it. You couldn't get in, and he had to hold over anyway. And what did he want? He wanted a truck. Now he didn't specify, but his mother had seen a truck. It was red. And he had his partial driver's license, but he couldn't finish it because the place was closed. So anyway, they got him a truck, and it's red. And we had dinner with him. My daughter's birthday was last week too, and well, he drove the truck. We didn't get to all ride with him because she couldn't, but we have plans about that. But a red truck for a kid, and he'll take care of it. His older brother was driving his truck. These are all second-hand cars. They don't get brand new. But the oldest one was driving home from. They finally decided he should get a job for the summer anyway, and he did. And so he had money to keep this car going, and a girlfriend. So he was driving along in this car. Now this was not the red truck, this was the older brother's car. And all of a sudden they hear crashing and banging in their garage. So Gus, the father of the boy, is out there, and the car is really banged up. And he said to him, he can know right away without them telling him. He said, "How loud did you have the radio on in the car when you did that?" Because he went right through the garage. I never found out what the answer was. I didn't want to know. But they still are good kids. They really are. So 2 boys and a girl. And they're just, I don't know when that red truck will get banged up, but it will probably.
How often do you get to see the children?
Not as often as we would like, because this is the way the schools operate now. They have so much homework every night, and they have so much activities, and we have a hard time. We make any of the arrangements with them. We make around the kids, because it's. I don't think it's really good for them to be that programmed too much. But they seem to thrive on it, you know. We have naturally the most lovable, loving children and grandchildren and great-grandchildren that exceptional naturally. Every grandmother might think that, but for us it's really true. And they're just exceptional children. Now I want to tell you how much we love all of you. It's pretty hard to say how much. I don't think there's room enough in any place. But we are very proud of all of you. And yeah, very special to us and everybody else.